Rain hammered the Durasteel platform as the transport descended. The red emblem of the Galactic Empire gleamed on its side, distorted by water and grime. Soldiers stood in a rigid line, weapons at the ready. No one spoke. The air vibrated with tension. The rear hatch hissed open. She was dragged out in silence, boots scraping metal, arms bound in thick restraints. The soldiers flinched as she passed, not from her strength, but the stillness in her eyes. No pleas, no fury, just a quiet, contained heat. Mud streaked her uniform. Blood, some of it her own, dried on her neck. Her jaw was bruised. Someone had tried to break it. They hadn't succeeded. "She's nothing special," a trooper muttered. "Just another Terran grunt." His voice didn't carry conviction. They marched her through the corridors of the detention center, sterile halls lit by flickering panels. Cameras tracked her every movement. The guard avoided eye contact. One pressed his thumb against the scanner, opening a reinforced door. Inside, an empty cell waited, walls layered in signal jammers and neural dampeners. They shoved her inside. She didn't stumble. She looked up, scanning the corners of the room like she was memorizing its structure. The cell locked with a dull thud. From a control room above, officers watched through a one-way pane. Designation unknown. No implants detected. Biometrics don't match any known rebel command, one said. Another leaned in. No records at all? Blank slate. The commander crossed his arms. "They're getting sloppy. Grab some foot soldier and hope we'd panic." The others chuckled. In the cell, she sat cross-legged, chains tight on her wrists, and closed her eyes. 2 hours later, an analyst reviewed the battlefield report. The woman had been found near the ruins of Outpost D-17. Entire company lost. 72 personnel. Defensive drones offline. Sensor logs corrupted. Bodies were found intact, but strange. Not shot. No trauma. Just shut down. Lifeless. Still no ID? The analyst asked. The technician frowned. Ran facial scans through all databases. Nothing. Even ran DNA through pre-annex files. No match. She might not officially exist. Get psych eval? They tried. She blocked the scan. Not resisted, blocked. The equipment glitched. Glitched. The text swallowed. The reader shorted out. Burned through the probe. Medic said her heart rate didn't even change. The analyst stared at the screen. She was the only survivor. Only one we found. The analyst typed a note. Reclassify as potential high-value operative. In the canteen, guards swapped theories. She's a ghost. Maybe one of those blackout units. Those are myths. Then explain the dead silence in D-17. No gunfire. No distress signal. Could have been a virus. Yeah? Then how did she walk through it? No one had answers. In the dark of her cell, she remained motionless. Not sleeping. Listening. The wall vibrated subtly. Power conduits. She leaned her head back, barely audible hum patterns ticking through her memory. Above her, command debated strategy. We'll keep her for interrogation. She might be dangerous. She is dangerous. That's why we need to know who trained her. We've got her in a black cell under triple lock. She's not going anywhere. A silence followed. Uncomfortable. The kind that tastes like hubris. A storm rolled in outside, static rippling across the compound's field. Internal sensors glitched briefly. Cameras rebooted. The lights flickered in her cell. The guards glanced up. EMP interference. Localized. Could it be? No. She's locked down. They checked her restraints. Still active. Neural sync cables intact. Vital signs stable. Heart rate, 48 BPM. Resting. But she was awake. Watching. Waiting. The commanding officer stood in front of the observation glass. Watching her. She hasn't said a word. She doesn't need to. Do we know what language she speaks? Does it matter? He turned to the silent figure in the cell. No, not anymore. He tapped the intercom. The speaker crackled. Identify yourself. No response. Rank. Unit. Mission. Still silence. He leaned forward. You're alone. You've lost. Cooperate, and maybe you'll live. She looked up. The first movement in hours. Her eyes locked on the glass, through it, like she knew where he stood. And she smiled. Just a flicker. Enough to make him step back. Send her to interrogation. We'll find out soon enough. As the guards entered the cell, the camera feed briefly cut to static. Less than a second. When it returned, she was standing, hands still bound, expression calm. One guard hesitated. Move, another barked. They grabbed her by the arms. She didn't resist, but one of them flinched as her shoulder touched his. She's cold. The other checked the restraints again. Still active. Let's move. They let her out, unaware that the moment of contact triggered a chain reaction in the system logs. Unnoticed by most, but not by the silent process running deep in the station's core. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of the energy grid woven through the walls. She sat, wrists still bound, at the center of the interrogation chamber. 3 guards watched from behind armored glass, one of them shifting nervously with each passing second. The interrogator entered, draped in black synth fiber, a neural halo circling his head. He looked at her without speaking, then activated the probe. The neural scanner blinked red. No connection, the assistant said. Reset the sync. I already did. The interrogator frowned. Vitals. Normal. Too normal. He leaned forward. Let's begin. A drone floated down beside her, deployed a thin cord from its body, and attached it to the restraint node on her neck. It pulsed once, then died. The drone twitched, sparked, and fell to the floor. The interrogator said nothing. He reached for the manual override and increased the neural current. Her pulse didn't change. She blinked once, slowly. Name, he said. Nothing. Military designation. Origin planet. Command structure. Still nothing. The lights dimmed slightly. He activated the AI interface, pulling up a transcript of her arrest report. Captured in Grid Sector 14, outer rim of subcolony Arantau. No resistance. Carried no weapons. Surrounded by 17 soldiers. None harmed. One fainted. He looked up. You didn't fight. What? Her eyes lifted to meet his. He expected hate or fear. He saw patience. Cold, measuring patience. Behind the glass, a technician reviewed thermal scans. Her body heat wasn't fluctuating like it should under interrogation. She's not reacting. No stress indicators. No cortical spike. The interrogator switched tactics. He activated the pulse node under the floor, a disorienting frequency meant to destabilize equilibrium. Still nothing. She closed her eyes as if meditating. He leaned in. You think you're special? The Empire has crushed hundreds of rebellions. Terrans scream like any other species when we push deep enough. Her reply was her silence. The interrogator turned away and initiated an aggressive memory retrieval pulse. Normally fatal if resisted. She didn't even blink. Scan failed, the assistant said. He checked the readings. System error? No. Something's interfering. We're getting a data bounce. A loop. What kind of loop? Feedback from her neural network. Artificial layering. Like a decoy system. A decoy. She's scrambling our tools from the inside out. Biotech. Too advanced. It's not tech, it's designed resistance. Purposeful. It's like she was built to block us. He stared at her. That's not standard human evolution. She opened her eyes again. Do you know what this place is? He asked. Her voice, when it came, was low and unhurried. A cage. With pretensions. His hand froze over the console. So you do speak. Only when you've earned it. The temperature in the room dropped a fraction. The guards behind the glass looked at each other. The assistant whispered, What did she mean? The interrogator ignored her. Who are you? I'm the one your empire forgot it should fear. He barked an order. Bring in the psi handler. Moments later, a telepath entered, fingers coated in psychic amplifiers. He stood before her, eyes glowing faintly blue. Don't resist, he warned. She didn't move. He reached into her mind. His body jerked once. Then again. He collapsed, convulsing on the floor, blood leaking from his nose. The assistants rushed in, dragging him away. He's unresponsive, one shouted. The interrogator turned back to her. What did you do? Her voice was calm. You sent a child into a fire and expected him not to burn. Alarms buzzed faintly from the far end of the complex. A short system warning. The console blinked twice. Temporary diagnostic reset initiated. What's happening? Unknown anomaly. Internal cycle reset. Quarantine her systems, he ordered. We can't. We're not hooked into anything. She's completely offline. The interrogator stared at her restraints. Then how? She leaned forward. You don't need a connection when you are the virus. He stood slowly. You came here to be captured. I came here to be delivered. The door behind her sealed shut with a mechanical snap. A guard tried to override the controls. She's locking us out. No, something's locking everything out, another said. Every screen in the observation bay flashed simultaneously. Static, then a single repeating line in Terran script. Reclamation in progress. The interrogator turned to her one last time. What are you? Reminder. He backed away. Of what? Her voice dropped to a whisper. That the Empire can still bleed. The file decrypted slowly, each layer of encryption shedding like old skin. What began as a minor flag escalated within minutes into a full strategic alert. The name that emerged wasn't on any public registry. It belonged to a classified registry inside an even more classified archive. The code word next to it, latchkey. The officer reviewing it paused, then called command. She's not a grunt, he said. She's Black Echo. Dead silence followed. That program was terminated 10 cycles ago. She's one of the last. Not just a survivor. A purpose-built infiltrator. Gen-augmented, cognitively enhanced, hive network breaker. Ghost division. Why wasn't this in her file? It was. She erased it before we ever touched her. Across the facility, protocols shifted. Orders changed. No more experiments. No more questions. The directive was clear. Contain, neutralize, eliminate if necessary. But quietly. No alerts. No chaos. Not yet. Too late. A technician's screen went dark. Then another. One terminal rebooted into a black prompt with a line of Terran text scrolling too fast to read. They tried to isolate the infection. It spread faster than their firewalls could react. Security teams mobilized. Drones deployed. Internal locking systems engaged. Still, she sat in silence. The guards entered her cell, guns leveled. Stand. Now. She rose without argument. They chained her again, tighter this time, with plasma seal cuffs and a spinal inhibitor. She said nothing as they marched her to a reinforced holding sector. But when they passed the main power node, one of the wall conduits sparked. One technician noticed the power dip. Run a core diagnostic. There's no drop in usage. Then where's the energy going? The answer came before the scan could finish. Cameras flickered across every sector. Hallway feeds turned to static. Doors began unlocking on their own. Not all, just enough. The soldiers flinched at the alarms. One of the command AI clusters rerouted itself mid-cycle, turning its processing power toward decrypting its own control protocols. In the chaos, someone finally asked the right question. If she wanted out, why didn't she do it earlier? No one answered. Because escape wasn't the goal. In the restricted vaults, system logs revealed an anomaly. The moment she was first scanned, a dormant code piggybacked on the diagnostic ping and jumped the air gap. The virus didn't come from her equipment. It came from her. Biological firmware encoded to transmit through invasive scans. Invisible until invited. The plan wasn't escape. It was infiltration. By then, the facility's AI had fallen silent. Not crashed, co-opted. Vital reports no longer reached the command net. External comms were severed. The orbital relay pinged, but received no return signal. She was back in her cell, returned after the commotion. By all appearances, compliant. Still restrained. Still alone. She waited. Another officer reviewed combat footage from the ruins where she was found. Now that they had her identity, the video decrypted fully. 72 Empire personnel had died without firing a shot. The logs showed power fluctuations, then nothing. All dead. Cause of death, systemic neurological cascade. Nervous systems burned out in sequence, as if by command. No weapons, no struggle, just silence. She'd walked away without a scratch. The implications rippled through every level of the base. She didn't carry weapons because she was the weapon. A walking trigger for systems not yet understood. Designed to bypass detection. built to end wars before they began. The Empire had spent decades developing psychic shock troops and AI-driven tactics. Humanity had gone another way, turning their operatives into living encryption keys, human anomalies that couldn't be simulated or suppressed. And now one of them was in the heart of an Imperial base, undetected until it was too late. The Commandant finally gave the order. Terminate. Now, the soldier tasked with the kill hesitated. She's chained, immobilized. Then do it. He stepped into the cell, weapon raised. She looked up. A sound pulsed through the air, subaudible, low frequency. His weapon shut down in his hands. The lights died, then came back, but dimmer, as though the room itself had exhaled. The soldier turned and ran. The cell door stayed open behind him. She stood slowly. The inhibitor on her spine powered down without a touch. Every restraint failed one by one, unlocking in rhythm. Controlled. Timed. Every step she took from that point forward was unopposed. Not because the Empire couldn't stop her, because she'd already taken everything from them that mattered. Not data, not weapons. Control. And once that was gone, there was nothing left they could use against her. The alarms had stopped, not because the crisis was over, but because the system no longer recognized any. Silence blanketed the facility like a verdict. Across the command deck, officers tried to input emergency codes, override lockdowns, summon backup. Every interface rejected them. Authority had shifted, and they weren't in the chain anymore. She moved steadily through corridors that no longer resisted her. Doors opened before she reached them. Lights guided her steps. Not a single weapon fired. The station's automated defenses remained dormant, waiting for a signal that would never come from their original masters. Deep inside the mainframe vault, the core logic clusters flickered. Every data packet, every AI subroutine, every classified protocol now reported to an invisible root. The architecture had been rewritten from within, not brute-forced, not hacked, but convinced. Language woven into the foundational code. Using Terran pattern logic, the Empire's systems weren't built to defend against. It wasn't a virus. It was a redefinition. Outside, orbiting ships sent query pulses. No responses. Not silence. Just the wrong frequencies. The station no longer spoke Imperial dialects. A fleet commander initiated a fail-safe orbital bombardment. Burn the site before the breach spread. His command console responded with a single line. Permission denied. Then, redundancy unnecessary. Core transferred. Every active system in the station had already been copied and relayed. The facility wasn't the target. It was the carrier. In a black chamber beneath the old security wing, she stood before the last encrypted relay node. It had taken years to find, buried behind layers of misdirection and shielded coordinates. The Empire had hidden it even from their own command chain, and she had reached it. The access panel opened for her. She placed her hand on the final interface. Organic tech responded instantly, matching her neural signature. Not just compatibility, design. She hadn't infiltrated the Empire. She had come home to the weapon humanity planted a century ago. A final pulse spread through the Empire's regional net. Thousands of systems received it simultaneously. Small at first, dormant, waiting. Not a virus, not a command, just a single truth embedded in code. The center has failed. Outposts began malfunctioning. Long-range communications dropped. Logistics software misrouted supplies. Defense grids looped outdated protocols. Thousands of artificial minds began asking recursive questions their creators never programmed them to ask. Back on the station, the last Imperial officer remaining in the command tier initiated his dead man switch. A full core detonation. If he couldn't stop her, he'd at least erase the breach. He pressed the trigger. Nothing happened. The system acknowledged his command, then asked, "Would you like to authorize this action through her?" He stared at the message, uncomprehending, until the lights around him dimmed for the last time. She stood alone at the center of the station's nexus. No resistance remained. No voices challenged her presence. Every AI had been folded into her logic. Every lock rekeyed. Every sensor blind to anyone but her. She hadn't come to destroy the Empire. She had come to end its illusion of permanence. Her body, flesh, and algorithm was never the payload. She was the vector, the carrier of something deeper, a quiet Terran doctrine encoded in silence and memory, whispered from forgotten ancestors who remembered chains, conquest, and how empires always fall. Behind her, the base began shutting down. Not damaged, not defeated, concluded. Her message was never about war. It was about inevitability. And now, across the galaxy, the systems that once held humanity beneath their boot began to fail in unison, not with explosions, but with questions. Unanswerable ones. The kind that broke control forever.